What is up, guys? Team Yukifields here with another video, and I went to locals today. I forgot to bring my tripod, so I couldn't record any matchups, but that's okay. I brought, as you can see on the screen, Sky Striker, and did fairly well with it. Top four. I think I got second place, actually. I lost. The only thing that I lost to was Sword Soul Tenyi in game 3 because I opened up a hand that was essentially unplayable. Like it literally, I don't remember what it was, but there was like cards in there that just didn't interact with what he was doing, and I had no way to actually get to a Sky Striker monster, so I couldn't start my plays off even from the beginning of the game. But other than that, had some pretty good rounds, played against some interesting decks and some meta decks. So overall, it was fantastic. It was the charity event that Konami does where they have people bring in like canned foods or non-perishable items, and basically every single round that you win you get another can. You start with 5, and then however many cans you have at the end of the tournament, you then get that many packs. So I ended up getting like 7 packs because I started with 5, won 3 matches and lost 1, and that basically put me at 7 packs, which was pretty sweet. But we're obviously going to hop in the deck profile, and before we do, if you guys are not subscribed already, make sure you go ahead and smash that subscribe button, turn the notification bell on, and obviously give the video a like. It is significantly appreciated. We're getting pretty close to 1,000 subscribers. So let's go ahead and jump right on into the main deck. Alrighty, so main deck time. I feel like the main deck itself, is pretty interesting. I'll discuss some of my choices and things that I've seen based off of other lists online that I partially went off of, and then my own personal theories. So to start things off, we have the Sky Striker monsters, in which we of course play 3 copies of Ray and 2 copies of Rose. I felt that playing 3 and 2 was a pretty solid ratio. I didn't want to play a 3rd Rose. I didn't want to play 1 Rose. And honestly, Rose didn't even come up that much. Like, the card's great, obviously, but it wasn't something where I was like, oh my god, I need a Rose. Like, usually I had the Ray when I needed the Ray, and it just functioned the way it should have, which was fantastic. But I also never used Rose's other effect, the special assault from the graveyard. Thought I would, but I really didn't. Honestly, I used Ray's tribute effect the most to summon from the extra deck. But I feel like most people would kind of figure that's the case. That came up quite a lot when people would destroy my striker monsters. I would get the Ray back, and then I would make a Shizuku usually if they didn't have any more attacks, and then I would get that extra search in the end phase. There's only one time that I tributed into Kaina. It kind of gave me an advantage, but it wasn't anything crazy. But that's the striker ratios. Hand traps, this is kind of funny. I play 3 copies of Ash, 1 copy of Valor, and then 3 copies of Imperm. These are the only hand traps that I play. The only reason I'm playing the 1 copy of Valor is for the Halqa Fibrax combo with Selene, and I contemplated upping it. I just not completely decided as to what I want to take out yet. It's kind of tough to choose what to take out to put in 2 Valors, because like obviously Valor is good, but there are other cards that I think are better. I think playing just the one of gets the job done. I actually never made the access code combo all day. Like, it did not come up a single time. It wasn't there. It just wasn't something I needed to do. The Imperms, however, came up quite a bit. The Ash came up a couple times, nothing crazy, but I feel that this hand trap ratio is fine. I wasn't concerned as much about playing hand traps as I was about figuring out ways to break boards. I thought that was a little more necessary. Then, of course, the last monsters, we played the Destiny Hero package with the 3 Fusion Destiny, because this is absolutely busted in this deck. I think that this is honestly one of the best things Striker could have gotten, is being able to play this. You can just literally get your DP off the field, and then you're clear to just activate your Striker effects, Striker spell cards again, which is just nutty, absolutely nutty. And it puts a spell engrave, which is even crazier. There was one point today where I activated Fusion Destiny. Someone attempted to negate it, and then I sent this with Droplet, and I sent another monster from hand with the Droplet, and that allowed me to negate their board of 2 negations that they had up and still summon a DP, which was crazy. Moving on to all of the striker spells now. We have, of course, 3 copies of our Widow Anchor, because why wouldn't we steal our opponent's cards or negate them? Like, that seems pretty darn good. This card was fantastic today. Like, honestly, I loved Widow Anchor today. It won me, I think, 2 out of the 4 rounds that we played. In like game 2s or game 3s, whatever the case was. Like, this card just came in clutch. Like, I would just steal my opponent's cards that they had left over, and then I just swing directly and wipe their life points out. So Widow Anchor was fantastic. I played 2 copies of Shark Cannon. I think playing double Shark Cannon is really good, specifically for something like the Access Code combo. And I do feel that against certain matchups, you do want to get rid of their graveyard. And like, if they're playing a DP engine, you could banish their DP. That's really darn good. So the Shark Cannon was fantastic. There were a couple times where I just banished cards, and then there were other times where I summoned cards. That way I could just link summon. I actually at one point activated a Widow Anchor to steal my opponent's Mechaba, and then I chained the Shark Cannon to summon their Almirage, and then I just made a Verte to make the DP, and that was pretty crazy. And the last 2 of that we play is 2 copies of Area Zero. There were a few games where I sided one of these out, and wasn't bad, wasn't great. Like, the card's obviously really good, but it wasn't anything that over or underperformed. Like, this card was very average today. The best part about it was obviously getting to summon a Ray off of it or a Rose off of it, whatever I needed per that situation. So that part was good, but other than that, it wasn't anything nuts. There was one point though where I had a Ray in hand, I had the Area Zero on field, and I had a multi-roll, and my opponent had a Tikaboo up. So no, I'm sorry, he had a Gozen matchup. I apologize, he had a Gozen matchup. So I opted to normal the Ray, and then I went with the multi-roll, send the Area Zero, and then I used Area Zero to summon the Ray from deck, and then I just linked into a Verte, and then I was just able to do the Predaplant play to get the DP out. Like, that was pretty nutty. Then we have all the one-ofs for the striker cards. I feel that 3 of them are obviously the most notable, in that of Hornet Drones, Engage, and multi-roll. The amount of times that I resolved Engage today was crazy. Card's really, really good. Obviously, it's at 1 for a reason. I played against someone in 1 round, and like, he, after playing me, he's like, wow. He's like, I totally understand why they are keeping Engage at 1 and they're not moving it from 1. And I'm like, yeah, like, it's a pretty good card. The multi-roll came up a lot today too, just being able to make it so your opponent can't chain to your spell cards. Like, that was pretty good. And Hornet Drones came up a lot. There were a few games where I searched this in end phase off of Shizuku, and it was actually extremely useful, like, very, very useful. So obviously the 3 limited striker cards came in clutch. Then the last one-ofs, I played 1 Burners and 1 Eagle Booster. Honestly, Eagle Booster is, in my opinion, from what I played today, the most useless card in the entire deck. I did not resolve the card once. The card did absolutely nothing for me. Like, I played it to play it because it does have some implications in which it is fantastic, but today the card was honestly the worst card in my deck, and I didn't even side it out. Like, I was like, oh, this card's going to be useful in 1 game, and it wasn't useful in any of my games, which is just terrible, absolutely terrible. So Eagle Boosters, like, I understand the thought process behind it, but for me today, it was extremely subpar, disappointing, and lackluster on all levels. The Afterburners, however, I will say was one of the MVPs of the day. I popped so many monsters and spell and traps with this card, and I cannot even begin to explain how great it felt being able to drop an imperm and then get rid of my opponent's card and then just swing with a Ray direct and then swing with whatever I summon off of her effect, which typically was high attack. So the Afterburners was fantastic, and the Eagle Boosters, in my opinion, was the worst card in the deck today. I would rather play Upstart Goblin, honestly, than play Eagle Boosters. But moving on to all of our other spell cards that we play. I played 2 Droplet. Honestly, I might cut the Eagle Boosters for the 3rd Droplet looking at it. There was never a time where I needed a 3rd Droplet, but like, there were times where I wish I had drawn 1 and I didn't, but playing it at 2 still was okay. It helped me play around some boards, I actually played against a DDD player one round, and he set up a pretty solid board of monsters, and I was able to droplet and negate all of them and swing past a couple, and then like afterburners and Widow Anchor the other ones, and then DP off, which is crazy. So droplet was really, really good for a lot of matchups. Definitely helped me chain the stuff and just get my plays through, which is really good. Then I played 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. Honestly, I was extremely underwhelmed by this card. Like, it's a fantastic card, and I did resolve it, I think, twice today, which for me, resolving this card only twice is kind of disappointing, but that's okay, like, it happens. But the 2 times I resolved it, one time it was to draw 2 cards because I needed some more cards in my hand, and the other time was to steal one of my opponent's monsters. That way I could link off into a Verte. So, like, it wasn't great. it did what it needed to do in the situations that I had the card, but it wasn't anything that was game defining in my opinion. Then the spice of the day that won me a couple matchups, Mystic Mine. I played 2 of it. I think 2 is perfectly fine. I would not play 3. Like, 3 would just clog too much, and I'm not trying to clog with this deck whatsoever. So I opted to stick with the 2, and it came up a bit. I think I dropped this card at least once every round except for my first round. My first round, the guy was just playing too many removal cards, and I just didn't want to play the mine, and I didn't need the mine. I still 2-0'd him, which was pretty sweet. Then, of course, to complement the field spells, we do play the Terraforming, because why wouldn't we? Just being able to slap this card down and either grab a mine or an Area 0 to continue your plays is fantastic. So the 1 Terraforming, fully worth it. The last spell that we play is 1 copy of Rhoda. I think that playing the 1 Rhoda is obviously a necessity. It's basically your 6th Sky Striker monster, and additionally on top of that, the good part about this card is that it puts another spell in your graveyard to make your Striker plays even more powerful. So those are all spell cards. Moving on to the traps. Obviously I showed the Imperm already. This is the other trap I play, and I might have to take back one statement that I said about the Eagle Boosters being the most useless card in the entire deck today. The most useless card that I did not draw a single time or activate or even set to like pop off of a multi-roller in Area 0 was Tikaboo. Like this card is fantastic against the meta. I did not see this card once today. Like, literally, I did not see this card at all, and I was extremely disappointed because I'm thinking to myself, wow, like if I saw this card, it probably would have changed like that Tenyi Sword Soul matchup. Like, I probably would have won that if I'd seen this card, but I didn't. So that's unfortunately the downside to this card is that this card next to Eagle Boosters, those 2 are probably the most disappointing card choices of the day because I didn't use them at all. Obviously the Eagle Booster, I saw it, I didn't use it because I didn't need to, but then there can be only 1, I didn't even see this card, which is absolutely crazy to me that I didn't even see it, but it happens. That, however, is the main deck, so I'm going to go ahead and hop on over to the extra deck and show you guys the ratios. I think a lot of them are very standard, but obviously I will explain my choices. Okay, so it is now extra deck time, and the extra deck is very much so that of a standard Striker extra deck. There's nothing here that seems like it's super crazy or super out of the ordinary. I'm just going to hop in and start showing you the ratios already. We play 3 copies of Kagari because why wouldn't we? Just grab back Engage, grab back Widow Anchor, literally grab back a Sky Striker spell that you need, and also gain attack points for each spell in your grave. I think the highest that I had Kagari today was like 24 or 25. Might have been higher, I can't remember, but off the top of my head, I know there was a point where I had at least 10 spell cards in grave, and Kagari was boosted pretty high up there. So the Kagari was absolutely clutch today, super clutch. Then the card that I think was probably the most clutch Sky Striker monster in the extra deck was the 3 copies of Shizuku. Now, don't get me wrong, the Kagari was great to add cards back. However, the Shizuku Searching in End Phase was hands down the best thing about the Sky Striker engine. I grabbed Engage so many times. I grabbed Multi-Roll so many times. I grabbed other cards that I needed for follow-up, like the Hornet drones, which I mentioned earlier. So the Shizuku was fantastic. There were times where my opponent would get like a couple monsters out and I would DP one away, and then they would kill my Striker Link. I'd get the Ray back, and then I'd just Ray into Shizuku before they went to end phase, and then I would get the Search, which is really good. So Shizuku is fantastic. 2 copies of Hayate. So for a very long time, for people who have been watching my content and have seen my Striker profiles before, I have always been a very firm advocate of playing 3 Hayate. However, I've seen a lot of lists lately playing 2, and I understand why, and it is because of the DPE package, and I think that now I can finally say that my opinion has been shifted from playing 3 to playing 2. And personally, if something like Verte gets banned, I will probably up the Hayate to 3, but at the same time, I'd almost consider playing the 1 copy of Hida. That way I can possibly have other routes to go into the Celine combo, seeing I didn't even do the Celine combo once today. So 2 to 3 Hayate is more than acceptable, but for my list today, 2 is fantastic. Then we played 1 copy of Kaina and 1 copy of Zeke. Now, the Kaina, as I mentioned prior in the video, did only come up once, but it was very good. I have absolutely no complaints with how the card performed. That being said, I actually did not go into time once today. I came close, but I didn't go into time. So the Kaina did not come up where I had to gain life points. Like that just, it wasn't a thing. So I'm not even worried about that. And then the Zeke came up a few times, actually. There were a few games where I just had to banish some stuff off the field, and then after I did, link the Zeke into like a Hayate and then swing to get my dump. So the Zeke was actually really, really good. It wasn't like an overperforming card, but it definitely did its job when I summoned it onto the field, which is all that I could really ask for. Then the other Link monsters that we play, the Hulk package, we play the 1 Hulk, the Celine, and the access code. So essentially what you do is you get one monster on the field and then another tuner monster on the field. You make your Hulk. Your Hulk summons Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler and Hulk make your Celine, which gets tokens based on the number of spells on the field and in the grave that is shared amongst you and your opponent. So, like, if you have 1 spell in grave and your opponent has 3, well, Celine now gets 4 tokens. So that's really, really good. So the Celine then summons back the Veiler, and then you link the Celine and the Veiler for the access code, and then you have, at the minimum, 2 pops. At the minimum. So that's really, really good. But this combo, which I mentioned before, did not come up once today. This combo, it literally did not happen. I didn't summon any of these 3 cards a single time today. I don't think that I would cut them. I think that these are fully necessary. I just think that per my matchups, there wasn't a single situation where I needed to do this because I had other cards that were aiding me in my route to victory in those rounds. Then the last Link monster we play is the 1 Verte, which is complemented by the DPE. Now, let me just say that this, hands down, was the best part of my deck today. I resolved DPE so many times and watched so many people get frustrated with this card. There were times where this card even got banished off of like Mechaba, like it got negated, and it still put in work because I baited out a negation, and then I was able to continue my plays and keep moving forward to progress the game state in my favor. So the DP was fantastic. Sending the Celestial and the Dasher to grave was fantastic. Granted, the Dasher didn't really do much, but that's perfectly fine. The Celestial still banished it, and I drew 2 cards almost every single round, I think. So very, very solid. This package was hands down the best part of my deck today, for sure. That, however, does bring the extra deck to a close. So we're going to go ahead and hop on over to the side deck to see what I did to counter this weird and silly meta. Alrighty, so as you can see on the screen, we have our side deck, and I think that the side deck has a lot going for it. I think going forwards, depending on a ban list, the side deck could look extremely different, but we're not at that point yet, so we really don't know. Looking at the monsters that we play on the side, though, I have 3 copies of Droll. This card came up a decent amount, and let me tell you, when I dropped this card against the Invoke player that I played, he was not happy about it. It actually won me the game, believe it or not. We were in game 2. Yeah, so I ended up 2-0ing him. But in game 2, like, it was a very, very grindy game, and he normaled out an Alistair, and he'd already went through both of his Mechabuzz. So he searches for the Invocation, and I drop a Droll, and then he goes for the Invocation, and I believe he summoned out Purgatrio because that was like the best card for him to summon from his extra deck. And then when he did, I opted to use the DPE to pop it, which was successful. And then the other card he had in his hand was an Ecclesia, so he was not able to continue searching, and the Droll won me the game for that reason. So Droll was really, really powerful. We have 3 copies of DD Crow. I tried this card today. It wasn't great, if I'm being perfectly honest, but it did come up once where, like, I had to, it was actually when I was playing against that DDD player that I mentioned earlier. I opted to banish his Swirl Slime from grave so he couldn't special summon from hand, and it completely shut down his ability to try and use Genghis to special summon other DDs from back from the grave. So the DD Crow did come up a couple times against him, but other than that, the card was just not that great. I didn't ever play it against a DPE, which kind of sucked. Then 3 Nibiru. Came up once, and it also won me the game, so like I have nothing bad to say about this card other than the fact that I wish I saw it more, but I will gladly take the fact that I was able to at least scoop up 1 game because of the card. Like, being able to steal a game because of Nibiru is always fun. Then for the removal cards, I have 3 Cosmic and 3 Evenly. This was decent. The Evenly was really solid. The Cosmic wasn't that great, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like, it came up once or twice where my opponent just had 1 stray back row, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll Cosmic and get rid of it. I didn't get Imperial Ordered once today, which was also fantastic. Nobody hit an Imperial Order against me, which I was extremely happy about. But even if they did, I would have the Evenly to go ahead and attempt to play around that, which is, you know, more than suitable. The Evenly came up in a few games, stole me a couple games, so I have absolutely 0 complaints there about how Evenly performed. And I don't think that I should say I'm complaining about how Cyclone performed, because honestly, Cosmic Cyclone was a good card. It just wasn't nearly as much of a blowout card as Evenly, so Evenly definitely put in all the work I needed it to. But that essentially brings the deck profile to a close. It's a very, very fun deck to play. I'm probably going to be playing this for a while going forwards. I'm going to try and get to locals to record stuff. I have a very busy schedule. I'm doing a lot of things in life right now that just kind of take up time. But I had a little bit of time today, so I went down to play, did pretty well. I believe I got 2nd place. I only lost the person who got 1st, which is obviously pretty good. And I think my tiebreakers were also fairly decent. So that basically rounds up the entirety of the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give the video a thumbs up. Obviously, smash that subscribe button and turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload more cool and awesome content just like the video you just watched. And for right now, this is Team Yugi Fails signing out.